Actually, I think I did that backwards, but it's okay. We'll do the Metaverse first. This is CNBC, Hong Kong's Mr. Metaverse, on why he's placing a big Web3 bet against Mark Zuckerberg.
More bad news for Mark.
Yeah, he's got some competition. In the evolving Metaverse economy, Yat Siu, the founder of a once little-known mobile gaming startup, is becoming known by a nickname, Mr. Metaverse. His pivoting his Hong Kong-based company, Animoca Brands. Oh, I know who this guy is. Do you know what Animoca Brands is?
No.
You don't? Are you still around?
No.
Did you disappear?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, for barely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was doing something.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not heard of this guy. I don't know who he is.
Okay, have you heard of Animoca Brands?
No.
They are the company that is behind the Bored Ape Yacht Club. You know, the very, very
NFTs.
expensive NFTs, yeah. To help shape, so he's pivoting his Hong Kong-based company, Animoca Brands, to help shape Web3 in a way that he says will offer an alternative to the tech giants from Meta to Microsoft, Tencent, and Snap. As consumers enter a new immersive market, but are wary of a technology that could still be tightly controlled by the biggest corporations. Since metaverse-like elements began popping up in video games in 2018, the Hong Kong-based startup has scrambled to invest, acquire, and build a next iteration of the internet. Quote, "We are investing aggressively and broadly to facilitate the growth of the open metaverse," said Siu, Animoca Brands executive chairman. Quote, "We're in a bit of a hurry because we think the biggest threat isn't regulation, but it is groups like Facebook and Tencent. This model of an open metaverse is very much in contradiction to the way they've currently constructed their business." He said, quote, "Right now, all the data you give to Facebook doesn't belong to you. It belongs exclusively to Facebook. We believe in a shared network, giving digital property rights to all and giving creators equity in the space. That's end quote. A decentralized data approach transfers ownership of digital assets such as virtual swords used by players in mobile games from a closed system. From a closed system that Siu likened to feudal kingdoms. Openness gives the quote-unquote serfs to or content creators. We're serfs?
Yeah,
I didn't realize as content creators
We've
were
always been serfs.
The ability to own or trade their data across platforms rather than constrained within the walled garden models or closed ecosystems of Web 2 leaders. So there you go. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it. But Animoca Brands, they're going to be so big in developing the metaverse. They already are. They're the biggest NFT company, basically, out there. I think they bought up the intellectual property rights of the Cyberpunks, which was the first, not the first, but I guess one of the first NFTs before it all exploded and everything. So I think it's interesting. I think it's something we should keep an eye on anytime somebody is claiming to be the next thing, not just in the form of, hey, we're battling Facebook, we're battling Twitter on like a even playing field with social media, but going back to this idea of, remember that clip I played from Peter Thiel, the youth, we must take over the world. That was his quote as like Bitcoiners or whatever, of crypto people or whatever, take over the world. This makes a lot of sense. I think if the intelligence agencies and the elite lizard people know what they're doing, which a lot of times they do in terms of the evilness, then I think that they would shift their attention and their money to groups like this to help build what will appear to be a more decentralized open system. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I don't think it's going to save the internet or anything like that, but maybe for a little while it'll be a better way to social media, or a more sovereign way to manage your data at the very least, which is good. It's good, but it requires a lot of education, and it requires the individuals who are out there to accept responsibility for their whatever it is, their assets, their money, whatever it may be, because that's part of the not the lull, the lulling to sleep, I guess, of the public with what's happened with central banks and all this stuff. It's all third parties holding it for you. I'll give us a little fee. If something happens, we got insurance. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of holding on to your money. And this whole thing with the metaverse, if done correctly, or at least blockchain and all that, is supposed to flip that model on its head. And people are supposed to be able to manage their own data and only share it or sell it under their own discretion, which sounds great, but I don't know how it's going to actually work out. But in the process, we're going to see a lot more of these young tycoon types making a case for the supremacy of the attention of the general population. And there you go. I just think it's something to keep an eye on. Yatsu and Animoca brands as they make their way into the metaverse and compete with the world's biggest Web 2 platforms. So
where's that company from?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting with the. There's an interesting twist to that battle of like the young, hot new technologists, of which Mark Zuckerberg used to be one,
right?
Until he turned into some sort of cyborg lizard creature. Is that
meats? I love to cook meats.
It's very appealing, the idea of the brand new young technology company who's going to change everything, not afraid to take on the big guy. The big guy is so corrupt, so wrapped up in the government structure, the lobbying, the now possibly even war fighting, things like that. But we were exploring how the New World Order, 2.0, Great Reset, has this problem with strongmen, with individuals with power. And we see over and over, one by one, these individuals, these sort of titans are falling. They're not even necessarily falling, but they are targeted not by activists, not by
the
rebels, not by anti-social culture warriors or whatever, but they are targeted by the establishment. And what does that mean? What is this domino effect that we're watching? And it's very tempting to be like, oh, the new technologist, that'll be awesome. We'll get him. He's not corrupt. But there's some about a young person and a younger, company and technology and things like that they haven't necessarily gotten the success. Like they're still working towards the success, which makes them more
for the breakthrough.
They're hungry. Yes. They're looking for their big break, which makes them really susceptible to corruption.
Yep.
And I think that's where you see, whether it's a government, an intelligence agency, a different corporation, some sort of organization can come in and basically they can sell their soul to the devil, which makes them no better than the sort of corporate lizard person who's currently in power. And the Mark Zuckerberg he is embattled. He's embroiled in combat from all sides, from governments around the world to social justice warriors to the SEC to the everybody. So in a strange way, it's like Mark Zuckerberg, while being an evil lizard person, is also sort of, I feel like he's less dangerous in the future than a potential corrupted, younger, newer technologist like that, or technocrat like that. So it's tempting to be like, oh, they're going to save the world. But it's also just a matter of time before the devil meets them at the crossroads and they have to make some tough decisions. You'd like to think that they're sort of punk rock enough to not do that, or at least realize that they hold some sort of power that they don't need to sell out. But so far, not a whole lot of exceptions to that rule.
Yeah. We've seen some examples. If we are to see the pattern of how things have happened, we've seen Jack Ma kind of being reeled in by the Chinese government, but Alibaba and some of his outworkings still kind of chugging along. And I wonder if there's something similar that they'd like to do with Facebook, because Facebook is it's a very useful tool, but it's almost, it's too easily targeted in this new iteration of the NWO 2.0 or whatever.
Oh, it's long in the tooth. It's so long in the tooth. Just old. It's just not. It's not useful to the new version,
right?
So things move so fast now. It's like, yeah, you had your 8 years. Now get out of here.
Which is, again, and I look at like MySpace in the U.S. Same kind of thing where it got bought out. Did it get bought out, or something happened where everybody just left in like a year?
No, yeah, it just became unpopular and it chugged on along for a while, and then Justin Timberlake bought it and tried to turn it into a music service, but it did not work out well.
Right, it failed. So,
all right,
yeah, I think this is just something to keep an eye on. There's lots of developments, and yes, you're right. There are, as we've been following, the geopolitical divisions taking place with the East and West narrative, the NATO West and the super alliance of China and Russia East. And the corporations, the tech companies, especially tech platforms that sort of stand in between all those geopolitical powers, they are slowly taking sides with certain issues. And it's interesting to watch where they land because, like we mentioned before, the geography becomes less important. It's more so about the number of, I don't know, trolls you have for your army, basically, in the digital sense. Not so much actual soldiers, boots on the ground, but how many hive mind warriors you can have to influence the information that the majority of the public consumes. So